Why, hello, everyone. Welcome to a very special edition of Jolene's Happy Time Craftcast. I am Joleen. I am your host. And thank you so much for either listening wherever you get your podcasts or watching us live on many of the platforms that we are streaming to at this exact moment. So thank you so much. I'm very, very grateful. Today's episode of the Happy Time Craftcast is a little sidestep from what we typically do. We are going to be talking with a very good friend of mine, like a friend of like 20 years now. Her name is Lisa M. Bolt Simons, and Lisa is an author with over 70 books and more coming. She is prolific in the world of the written word. She leads workshops and seminars. She is an accomplished educator and speaker, and she does a lot of really amazing work around the topic of grief. And it does not escape me that grief doesn't sound like the happiest thing to talk about. But Lisa will share here in just a few moments why it's important that we frame conversations about grief in our everyday life. So I know you will do a really good job and help me welcome Lisa to the Happy Time Craftcast. Hello, Lisa.
Hello, Joleen.
Isn't it weird to hear me say that we've been friends for 20 years?
Yes, it's weird.
I know. It seems like just yesterday we were sitting in the hockey stands watching those little peanut children with all their gear play hockey. And here we are.
Here we are again.
I know, right? So, can you just tell our listeners like a little bit about you? Was there anything that I missed that you would like them to know?
I am just a very well-rounded Jill of all trades. I don't feel like I have a specialty of anything.
Mhm.
I'm a writer, and that's pretty much my trophy winner.
Mhm.
But I just do a lot of things very I'm good at a lot of things.
Mhm.
And so I'm friendly and
You are.
yeah.
You are very friendly.
And one of the things that I know, a lot of my friends will say is that I send out cards, and I
Yeah.
know that you told me to stop buying cards, but I don't, Jolene, I'm sorry. And
That's
so
because I think you should make them. It's not that I just because you've been a scrapbooker for years and
yes,
you are a creative in lots of
yes,
ways.
I am.
Primarily the written word is your creative um, avenue or medium, but you do lots of other things.
Right, so I just run out of time, so
Right.
that's the time saver. It's a time saver, and I try to stay organized, and I make people feel comfortable. I'm an extrovert, so I love to help people feel comfortable in social situations. I was just at a conference hosting a 6-day conference this last weekend, and just welcoming people into a space. So
So
that's what I'm at.
So, can you tell us a little bit more? So, you are a creative and you have been spending more time helping, exploring, and taking people through grieving workshops, or, I know you call them shadows and sunlight. Can you talk a little bit about your grief work?
I was 3.5 years old when my dad was killed in a plane crash. He was a military pilot. He flew on the demonstration team, the Thunderbirds. And so from that day forward, from ever since I can remember, I have been grieving. And my grieving process is so completely different from someone else's. Jolene, I know you have also lost your dad,
Mhm.
but you were older. And
Yes.
so you have a lot of memories about your
Mhm.
dad that I do not. So
Mhm.
I'm grieving a man I don't know while you're grieving a man that you
Mhm.
remember.
Mhm.
And because of that, I wanted to help people write through their grief
Mhm.
and process their grief because we are all on grief journeys, and it's a very complicated, tangled thing.
Mhm.
And I am just hoping that as I give people writing prompts, and
Mhm.
as not only that, but as we share, what we write, we realize there's things that we have connections with. So even as I've heard you share about your dad, I think, oh my gosh, I haven't thought about it that way.
Mhm.
And that's why I wanted to help others in their grief journeys, because we are not alone. All of us have suffered grief. And that's why I'm here. I really feel like that's why I'm here, is to help others work through their grief.
So I think in all of the things that I've seen you do over these last 20 years, I think, Lisa, you kind of landed into your calling. And the reason I think that is because when I've been at grief retreats, and I know that's not like the best term, but when we get together we've had what, three of them now, two or three of them now, and we're gearing up for another one this summer. But I almost feel like I become almost like a sacred witness, in that what I am observing people share and experience. And one of the things that you do such a good job of helping folks frame is that a grief retreat or the process of grief isn't sad every single second. Can you talk more about that?
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I'm glad that you brought that up, because every single time that I've done this, whether it's a class and now these workshops that I'm doing around the state of Minnesota, every single time, Jolene, I have had people say something that they have never told anybody. Just this last workshop that I had a couple weeks ago, this woman, and she was probably, I say, mid 60s,
Mhm.
and there were 12 of us in this room. She shared something that she had never shared before. And it was so powerful that
Right.
she felt that she could have this safe space, that
Mm,
she could share this. And um and then at the end, as we draw through these writing prompts, we
right.
get to the end, and I always, always want to save the sunlight for the end, because I don't want people to walk out of these classes or workshops or retreats feeling sad and emotionally drained, because we get there. We feel emotionally drained.
Mhm.
But that sunlight, when I start sharing, they start sharing photos. You should see these people share their photos of their loved ones. Oh my gosh, the smiles. And we go, oh my gosh, that photo. Look at you and look at your person.
Right.
And the eyes and the tears, and then we share humorous. When we had that retreat, and that one story the woman shared of her son, we were crying in laughter. I mean, think about that movie Steel Magnolias, when you are just bawling, and then,
Right.
right, Sally Field is, no, hit her, hit what,
Hit Weezer. Hit Weezer. Yeah. Yeah. It's a
yeah,
great
and
line. Great moment.
you
Yeah.
are just laughing so hard. It's because grief has so many complications, and we go through so many emotions.
Mhm.
And I love when it's that gut wrenching laughter, not that gut wrenching, heartbreaking sadness.
Right.
And it's absolutely phenomenal when you walk out of there knowing that your heart is filled with the joy and laughter of your person as well.
Right. And I've seen you many times encourage people to explore that two things can be true at the same time. You
Mhm.
can be living with and processing your grief, but still be happy in your life. And it's learning to navigate the lump or the open wound, and how you still are present for other people. I've learned so much through all of these experiences. And I think that what's interesting to me and what has been really eye-opening is kind of listening and giving support to people in grief when the rest of the world says really stupid stuff.
That is one of the prompts that
Mhm.
we have, is, what is the worst thing that
Yeah.
someone has said to you? And there was a woman who lost her son. He was special needs. He was supposed to pass away at age 9, and he lived to be in his 20s.
Mhm.
And because he was special needs, some of these people were coming up and saying, "Oh, he's in a better place now." And she was so angry.
Well, and
So
I think that it's the unintentional hurt that people cause. Like, I don't,
oh,
because we are so ill equipped to talk about grief,
oh,
we say
absolutely.
stupid things, meaning to say nice things.
Right.
And
Right.
what I think a takeaway from the retreat too is helping people who are going through grief know that they are seen and
Oh,
that it
absolutely.
is it is understandable to feel pain from someone's good intentions. And what do you do next? Would you agree?
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. And
Mhm.
so we also talked about our one of what are the best things that you heard?
Yeah,
How do people embrace you? So again, we're looking at that juxtaposition of the shadows and the sunlight and
right,
also the worst things, but also the best things that people
mm,
said. Yeah.
right.
How do you support those people who are in so much pain?
It really is amazing work, and I mean, I am so proud that, we host one of these at Big Raven Farm, and I also love that, the warm up, to exploring grief is often this creation of a handmade journal. Can you
Mm.
explain why do you start there as a creative?
Because we don't want to start that hard work right away. This
Mhm.
is a way of us putting together this journal where we're just getting instructions from you and me. And
Right,
so it's like this warm up before we have to get into that really deep heart work. It's just these basic, okay, where do I put that hole and how do I get that thread in? And
right. Where
so
does the paper go? How does it fold? Yeah, for sure.
where's that fold? So we're getting to know each other on a different, it's that surface level
Right,
before.
the ice, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So we're melting that ice first, and then you get to that blank page, and then we start getting into it. So
Mhm.
that's why it's that warm up. It
Right,
really is the icebreaker. And then where are you from again? And how far did you drive? And
right.
so that's why we want to start there and then get into that blank journal, and then you have somewhere to start.
Mhm.
And that's why we decided to start with that.
So, Lisa, what are some of when you're doing this grief work, what are some of the modalities that you use? Like, what are some of because it's not all the same. You use
Oh
different
no,
things.
no.
So, what are
And
some examples of the things that you use in this process of getting from shadows to sunlight?
I use essays, I use book excerpts, I have used podcasts, I have used TED Talks, I've
Mhm.
used movie clips. And the thing is, Jolene, I have also, because I'm always finding new things.
Yeah.
So I might use steel magnolias again, but I'm always trying to change the content. I find different books.
Mhm.
I might use one writing prompt the same, but I also find different podcast excerpts. So if you have been before, the excerpts will be different.
Right.
So if you feel like you've been before and you want to come back and do some more work, the content will be different. So that's another thought. And I also you sent me a text that someone was concerned that this is all about
Mhm.
someone death or someone who has died.
Yeah.
When I did a workshop just a couple weeks ago, a lady showed up and she said, "I'm going through a divorce
Mhm.
and I really need to be here."
Right.
And Lean, I'll have you know that she was the one who cried the most. And there was another woman who came and she said, and I go around and I ask why these people
Right.
came. And she said, "I wanted to come today because I have a niece who's suffering from mental illness." And she didn't go further than that, but at the end,
Mhm.
when I had people share their photos, she said, "I wish I had brought the photo of my niece before she had cut up her face."
Oh gosh.
And so she is really grappling with the
Mhm. The
before the
loss.
mental illness, yes,
Mhm.
and the after, and that loss. And so these retreats are really dealing with grief on totally different levels.
Right.
So these workshops, these classes, it's not always about death, but it's about loss.
Well, and so what I hear you saying too is that people will watch, they'll listen, they'll
Mhm.
write, they
Yes.
might draw or collage.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
there are different mediums and
Yes.
processes to explore. Because
Yes.
I am, you and I are different in that I am not much of a writer journaler, but I am a collager and I use fabric and paper and all kinds of things to help me explore and process emotions. And so I think what's really great about what you have crafted is you don't prescribe
Oh
how
my gosh.
people get through
No.
this, creative experience.
No. Do you remember our first retreat
Oh
during
yeah.
all of these writing prompts? One of those ladies, she drew the entire time she
Yep.
painted.
Yep.
Yeah, because that was her way to process the death of her dad,
Yep. It
right?
was, yeah, definitely. Yep.
So,
Brother, dad and it
her
could have been dad
brother.
and brother. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
But I
that's right.
I think that the freedom to find your creative expression is really smart in what you have crafted and built for people. I also think that what I didn't really know until I started collaborating with you on these projects is that there are some folks who believe that grief is on a timetable or a prescriptive timeline. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I know
I
it comes up a lot.
yeah. There was a lady at this last workshop, and she said that everyone told her that that first year was the hardest.
Right.
She didn't realize that the second year was worse.
Yep.
And there was another woman who was there, and she said it had been, I think it was, I can't remember how long it had been, 20 years or something, and she was
Mhm.
still grieving.
Yeah.
I've been grieving for 50 years. My dad will never come back.
Mhm.
My dad never got to meet my kids. And I know that if my dad had lived, my kids would be different, my life would be different, but
Right.
there's some things that are just never going to be the same because I didn't get that relationship with my dad. Grief is just always there. I
Right.
That's why for me, Jolene, I don't believe in closure. There's always going to be that scar.
Mhm.
And so, when you listen to Nora McInerney,
Yeah.
she has that TED Talk, and she has
Yep.
some books. She will always have that child from her first husband.
Mhm.
And that first husband will never be part of her life. Her
Right.
son will never have the father.
Mhm.
So there is no prescription. There's no time limit.
Well, and I think it comes back to the crazy things that people say. I mean, I remember one woman sharing that her son was murdered. I mean, good Lord. And somebody in her family, after 5 years, said to her, I
Right.
can't believe you're not over that yet.
Yes.
And it's just alarming to me that what people say to a person in pain, and then also how somebody like that needs people like you and me to
Yeah.
be in their corner
Yeah.
and to
Yeah.
help fill that cup back up because that must have been like a sock in the nose.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
And we
And
hear it. We hear so much of it, which I think is definitely not happy.
and our last retreat, do you remember when the woman who lost her twin and her husband, she had always shared
Oh,
those
yeah, yeah.
experiences with her husband,
Mhm.
and her husband just died last year?
Yep.
And so we were the ones she could share because she
Mhm.
didn't have her husband anymore.
Right.
So her other twin who survived is in her 20s, right? So for 20 years, Jolene, she had a safe space with her husband.
Right.
But now she doesn't have her husband, so now she needs to find a new safe space, and she found that with us. And so again, you're always trying to build a safe space
Mhm.
to find a place for your grief.
Yep.
And so again, you can't have these prescriptions. You can't have this timeline. You
Right.
just can't.
Do you
And
do
as you
you
go on, sorry, you're going to have more grief. And
right.
so again, finding more spaces for this grief.
Do you, and I'm sorry I was interrupting, I got excited about
Mm,
my question. Do you find that some people might think that their grief is invalid? Have you heard that before? Or, like, it's here's an example. So my dad died, and that is kind of circle of life kind of stuff, right? Like children
mhm.
expect their parents to die, and I was an adult, and those things happen. And so it's just kind of normal, happens to us, right? And then you compare that to someone who, let's say, has, lost a child. Like, do you find people enter into a grief space first needing to justify that they're grieving?
Of course.
Mhm.
And again, I'm going to bring up this most current workshop a couple
Yeah.
weeks ago. This woman who hadn't shared this before
Mhm.
said that she is not allowed to grieve the way she wants because her family won't let her.
Oh my
So
goodness, what does that even mean? That's
it's
so
this
sad.
so sad, this expectation. Again, it's the cycle of life. She lost
Yes.
her husband. It was too early, but she lost her husband, so
Yeah.
older gentleman. But she's not allowed to grieve the way she wants because her family won't let her go in that space that she wants. And so
Right. There's nothing
again,
safe. Mhm.
no. So she's not allowed to have, she's not validated.
Right.
And so, God, I mean, you should have seen the rest of us. There's, 13 of us in this room, and
Yeah.
12 of us just we were just like, oh no, we
Doesn't
felt
it sometimes make you think, Lisa, that like I love that you are doing this incredible work for those who are grieving, but sometimes I'm like, everybody else needs a workshop too, like on how we talk about death and dying and grief and loss and
so.
things that you say and things that you just do not say. I had miscarriages earlier in between my children. And often people would say, it wasn't meant to be. They're in a better place. There was something wrong with that child, like whatever it was. And I just remember feeling so many emotions,
Mhm.
ranging from, I wonder if they're right, to shut the F up, right?
Mhm.
Like it was everything in between. And so I feel like, too, some of the great work that you're doing is helping people find tools and language when
Yes.
these kinds of things come up because they come up all the time.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. They come up all the time. And so I'm doing these workshops because I won this grant. I'm
Mhm.
working on my dad's book, this memoir, and I know I'm kind of jumping ahead to your one of your
My
questions.
next question. That's okay. I love it.
What are you working on?
Yeah.
I started working on this in graduate school on my dad's book. I started writing essays because I felt like I needed to write about him. I have so many questions and so many things I needed to process. Like,
Mhm.
why did he die when I was 3.5? And what's going on with this man who adopted me? And why is it so unfair? But this I'm not the only one who's had to deal with this.
Right.
And what's going on and how can I grieve a man I don't know? So I applied for a grant, and as part of the Minnesota State Arts Board, I needed to go out into the community in the state of Minnesota and connect with others in the state. And
Right.
I decided that there are so many people out there who don't have writing centers like the Loft Literary Center,
Right.
don't have access to universities. And so I'm picking communities that are under 20,000 out in the middle of Minnesota, like
Right.
cornfields or wherever.
Lots to choose from. Lots
Lots
to choose from. Right.
lots to choose from. And that's why I chose these communities, because they don't have this access. And that's why I'm doing these workshops, going through these prompts, using these book excerpts, doing these podcasts, and helping them try to process maybe something that they don't have. And what was sad too, Jolene, is one of the ladies who was at this workshop a couple weeks ago, her husband was in Vietnam. And she said that he had woken up the night before just screaming and crying. And I
The night
said,
before he died?
no, the night, her
Oh,
husband who had been in Vietnam.
oh, the night before the workshop.
Yeah, the night before the
Okay.
workshop. So this
Whoa.
woman, yeah, no, this woman's husband. And I said, I hope he gets help. And she goes, he never will. So there are those who just have this wall and they're
Right.
just so afraid to break through that kind of grief. Because I can't imagine what he saw. I can't imagine what he saw in, hang on a second. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I can't imagine what he was going through. Rosalind, can you mute yourself?
I love that you're multitasking.
Yes. Rosalind, can you mute yourself? Sorry, that's my student who jumped on.
That's okay. It happens.
Yeah.
Well, while you're talking to Rosalind, I have another question for you because I know
Yeah.
that you have a class to teach. So,
Yeah.
Lisa, where can people find you? Where can people find access to these workshops? Where can they get involved in your work on grief? What have you got coming up for folks?
I have some more workshops. Yes, Rosalind, you can go. Yes, you can go.
Lisa's teaching at the same time. Love it.
So the workshops are on my website.
And what
So
is that, please? And we'll put it in our show notes.
okay, so it's the events are up there,
Mhm.
and so it's on my website, and they're just listed on my events. So
Okay, awesome.
yeah,
And what are you doing in the way of are you doing another grief retreat?
yes, the grief retreat is coming up. Yes, yes. Sorry,
It's okay.
I'm looking at this camera. Go ahead.
Right. So your grief retreat is coming up. I can answer this one because I know the answer. It's coming up at Big Raven Farm in June. So in Spring Grove, Minnesota, and it is 4 days, 3 nights. I want to say June 24 to 27, something like that, Thursday through Sunday. And Lisa, in the past, we've had people say, am I going to cry and be upset the whole time?
No, you're not going to cry and be upset the whole time. That's why it's called sunshine and shadows and sunlight,
Mhm.
because we start off with the, I don't want to say sadness though, because
Right. Grief,
it's
maybe.
yes, it's walking through that process. It's
Mhm.
walking through the um the journey. It
Mhm.
is it's exploring. It's
Mhm.
going through the prompts. I ask everybody who comes to just dig in and explore the feelings, the
Mhm.
thoughts, the emotions. I really dig in, and then we listen to the podcasts, and it's really digging into how you're feeling about not only what happened, but what you're feeling now. And then we guide into and get to that sunlight, because by the end, I want everybody to leave knowing that that person was here, and there is this beautiful light and joy and humor, and we just we walk out of there with this full heart.
Right.
And that's why we end with that sunlight and joy and wonder and the connections that we have with each other. We're laughing with each other. We
Mhm.
cry with each other. We eat wonderful food from the chef, and it's
We
just
sure do.
yeah. So
Well, and it's
yeah,
like all
it's
of the
great.
things too, like it's very sensory in that this particular retreat is you are fed really, really tasty, nummy, nutritious meals. So we're taking care of that. You sleep in luxurious beds with lots of quiet and the tranquility of the farm. We offer yoga every day.
Yeah.
We've done bonfires, we've done things outside. So I don't want people to think that it is 24/7 of emotional
No,
scrubbing. Um,
no,
and
no.
what I think the most amazing about these experiences is that I feel so honored to be witness to people's vulnerability and their willingness to share. And
Yes.
I love that the compassion of providing other people a safe place to share about their experiences and their journey. It's Lisa, it's really a lovely thing that you have created, and I'm so proud to be a part of it.
Well, thank you. And I just want to do a little side note too.
Yeah,
There's never any pressure to share because
right.
sometimes people just want to just soak in what other people say. There are times when no one wants to say anything, and that is recognized, and that's okay because we offer a very safe space. And
Mhm.
then um, you take all of those thoughts with you, you take your journal home,
Yeah.
and if you want to further process, but a lot of times people feel that it's okay to connect. Sometimes they read what they write, sometimes they say something different, and that's okay. So I
Right,
we
or sometimes they pass.
yes, and sometimes they pass. So but it's just it's a wonderful, serene, very peaceful place to be able to do this. So
I
thank you
am
for offering your space.
I am pulling up the exact date so I know what we are talking about.
It
It
is the
is
20th through the 24th.
yeah, it's June dude, it's June 20th through the 23rd.
Oh, 20th through 23rd,
Yes,
sorry.
20,
Yes.
21, 20. Yeah, that's 4 days, yeah. So, like, got it right here in writing.
Thank you.
Well, I know that you are doing 10 things at once, that you are teaching a class and you have students waiting for you. And thank you so much for taking the time to come on to the Happy Time Craftcast, even though I know this isn't the happiest of conversations, but it is certainly an important one. As a person who lives with grief and as a person who can provide support to those that do. Hello, Anthony. Anthony, your son is here. Hello,
Oh,
sugar beets. Your Aunt Joleen loves you so much.
hi, Anthony.
Oh, that's so
I love you
nice.
too. Don't even mention Jolene's banana bread right now.
I'll make it. I'll bring it. You can have it. You can have whatever you want, child. You know how much I love you. Ask for a pony and it shall be yours. I love
Well,
him
thank
so
you.
much.
Thank
Yeah.
you for asking me to join you. I really appreciate it because this is really hard work, but it's also very wonderful too. So thank you.
And Lisa, you've crafted an amazing experience. So, for those of you listening today, or if you've joined us on the live, thank you so much. Make sure you join me next week, where we are going to be talking about the amazing world of art quilts with Sandrasa. She will be my guest, and she is a quilt designer, a fabric piecer, and she loves doing something called rough edge applique. So, that's what we're talking about on the next Happy Time Craftcast next Wednesday at noon Central. All right, everybody. Have great days. Thank you, Lisa. I love you.
Love you too. Bye.
Bye. Bye, Deborah. Bye, Anthony.